Welcome everyone to part two of the webinar that we started last week. Angela Spearman is joining again to continue. We had so many questions that we didn't get a chance to ask and answer. So she did a presentation. If you missed that, check that one out. So that was from the last Monday in January of 2025, if you're watching the recording. And this is a continuation with questions. And if there's time, she's got more information to present, but we're going to start with questions so we don't run out of time. And Angela and I were just talking, and she has been hosting the drop-in group on our website for betrayed partners on Sunday nights for 6 years. That is dedication, and I want to honor you for continuing to show up. You know, and she volunteers, like she volunteers to do that. So she's been showing up and sharing the space with partners and holding the space for partners for 6 years on our platform. So we're incredibly grateful for that. Angela also facilitates the online work group for betrayed partners that will start again March 4th. So those are 90 minutes per week, live facilitated. So it isn't just watching videos. That's an opportunity to really learn more about what addiction is and isn't, healthy boundaries, communication tools. So check that out. Low cost, high value. Angela does a great job with that. So anything to add to either of those?
Yeah, I would say in those work groups, we actually spend a lot of time. The first 40-ish minutes, I will present curriculum, but the rest of the time, almost a full hour, I'm just taking questions in the group.
Oh, great.
And so there's lots and lots of opportunities to say, hey, this is what I'm really this is what I need help with, right? And then we discuss it as a group, and especially from that codependent orientation, because there's no reason to blame a betrayed partner for anything that her partner has done or his partner has done. We do have, I would say 10% of our work groups have now become male betrayed partners. So we're getting a lot more diversity, and we've got people from all over the world. This past one, we've had people in Ireland even. So, yeah.
And that's awesome because, there aren't safe places around the world, to get help and get support. And so to have these, be so easy to access, is really meaningful. And that was honestly what Dr. Rob, had a vision for creating in the first place. He wanted there to be help and resources. And we work really hard at Seeking Integrity to have integrous, resources, not just, anecdotal, whatever. We want it to be real and meaningful help for each, both the addict and the betrayed partner, on this complicated journey. So, okay. So Angela, we've got questions. We're going to start with the Q&A first, and then we'll get to the other one. So, this was one of the ones I copied. So, okay. So I know I've been a screaming maniac over several years of trickle disclosures about my partner's massive acting out. I have a wonderful EMDR therapist, so I'm taking care of me, but I also know I've behaved horribly. I've asked my betrayed partner about resentments held against me. There must be some resentments, but I never get any feedback to work on my amends for my behavior. How do I ask differently to actually help us both with healing? Thanks for coming back and asking.
Okay, so the question is from the person who cheated. How can I make amends with my betrayed partner?
I've been screaming with the trickle disclosures over my partner's mass. So this is from a betrayed partner.
It is the betrayed partner.
The betrayed partner is going, I've been a screaming maniac. And now I'm asking the betraying partner, like, what have I done that has caused you resentment? So.
Yes. It can be really surprising for a betrayed partner to learn that the person who cheated on them has resentments towards the betrayed partner. And there's nothing you can do about somebody else having a resentment towards you, right? That's their own work. I heard something in the question asking about how do I get amends? Am I understanding that?
So this partner, and you can see these, if you pop the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, you'll be able to follow them too. Do you see it?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So it's like, so what I am reading is the betrayed partner is going, hey, you must have some resentments because I was just, out of my mind, and the addict partner is not owning them and not saying anything. And so the betrayed partner is going like, I can't make amends to my person for my part of the, my behaviors,
Mhm.
and because, he or she is not saying them. So,
Yeah. Okay. So I like this question. So this idea that I know I have done some things that would lead anybody to resent me for, right? Screaming maniac, I think is the words you used. In working through your own trauma, which is understandable that you would have been through having bouts of rage and screaming and sheer fear and terror because this is a crisis, right? You have been in a crisis. This is a tragedy, and you're trying to make sense of it. And the future is so uncertain, and anybody would be responding in this way. So the fact that you're saying, listen, I'm going to an EMDR therapist and that's helping me, but my partner, who is the one who cheated on me, isn't really giving me any feedback on how I can make amends to them. Okay, so I'm imagining in my mind that the person who cheated on you is thinking, I'm an awful person. I'm the one who did all this to you. How could you possibly think that you need to make amends to me, right? Like I would imagine that that's probably a part of what would be going on in a situation like this, which sounds kind and showing empathy, but it's okay if there's something that you want to make amends for, that you go to that person and say, hey, these are the things that I did that whether they affected you or not, they went against my values. And so these are things that I've been working on. And I want you to know that I'm aware that I have behaved in these ways. And I would like to first apologize. And then second of all, I'll let you know I'm continuing to work on these things. And is there anything that we can do moving forward that can help repair this rupture that has happened in our relationship? Is there anything that you need from me? Because I know that there are things in my own experience of this crisis that, maybe where I'm at now, I can handle it in a much better way. And I'm ready to do that. Right. And so just being able to say, listen, whether you hold resentments against me or not, there are certain things that I'm forgiving myself for. Right. And I'm doing my own self-forgiveness and self-compassion. But I do want you to be aware that these are things that I'm working on. If you, and which the question sounds like you would like to have that kind of a conversation, that you would like to repair that rupture. I think that's a good way to do it.
I do too. And when I make amends, it almost has nothing to do with the other person. Like if they have a resentment towards me or not, it's kind of irrelevant. It's like I know that I have to own my behavior. And what I hear you doing is absolutely, I'm owning that, I was so dysregulated that I was not myself, and I did all of these things that, I'm not happy about. And so I'm working to make amends. And just like Angela was saying, you can make amends regardless of whether there is any kind of resentment, or even that your betraying partner has any awareness of. Because I was thinking the same thing. It's like, oh, I was the one, my behaviors caused you to become a screaming maniac, so why would you be feeling bad? Like that whole loop, it doesn't matter. You're owning, this doesn't make me feel good about me, and I'm working to do things differently. So I really applaud that.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Okay, I'm the betrayed partner. I harbor resentment because my husband continues to be, I think it's unable to demonstrate empathy and compassion for my pain, as well as seemingly not care about and refuses to meet my needs outside of betrayal issues. He may be doing that because my energy is negative. How can I let go of the resentment, whether he makes these positive changes or not? I love this question. And if you didn't watch the webinar from last week, check that out, because there's steps to let go of resentment. But Angela.
Yeah. So again, what I'm hearing in a question like this is what I typically see when I've got a couple sitting in my office where one person is resenting the other. And because that person is resenting the other, now the next person is resenting the first person. And it creates this unending loop that just creates more and more resentments. And then the couple's looking at me like, how do we break out of this? And it really starts with recognizing that that's what's happening and being able to go, okay, well, I can't get my partner to stop resenting me. So what can I do to stop resenting my partner? And I think that that's really the question here. The last sentence is, how can I let go of this resentment, whether he makes these positive changes or not? And I think that that is going to come down to, there's workbooks. Kristen Snowden has Life Anonymous. I think this is an excellent book for working through our own challenges as betrayed partners. And the great thing is, the person who cheated, or somebody who does have an addiction, can also work through this. This is written for both. This is such an excellent example of why everybody could benefit from working through the 12 steps. The 12 steps is a growth process. It is something that helps you go, okay, I'm willing to look at my part in all these areas of life. I'm ready to accept reality for what it is, to admit to myself all of my disappointments, and then to start making steps to figure out, where do I go from here, right? How can I accept reality? Because I don't know about you guys, reality doesn't always play out the way that I would really like it to be. And so sometimes I have to just forgive reality in order to accept it. Life is not unfolding the way I want it to unfold, even when somebody doesn't betray me, right? Just normal everyday life can be really challenging. So this idea of how do I let go of my resentment starts with recognizing you have your resentments, and then second, working through it. And the interesting thing about resentments is, even when you're dealing with resentments with yourself, you'll feel yourself resent yourself for having the resentments, just like the couple, right? And so what you do with that is you continue working through resentments. Oh, I'm resenting myself for having these resentments. Resentments are going to keep popping up for you, which means you're going to keep doing the work. But when you keep doing the work, it works. If you trust the process and you keep engaging it, it really does work. You come out the other side of this much more resilient, much more flexible, able to adapt. I would say adaptability is a huge thing that you learn by doing the 12 steps. And you're just a little bit more pleasant to be around for your own enjoyment, as well as the enjoyment of people around you. You just kind of take things a little bit more in stride after you've worked the 12 steps. And that's a neat gift to give yourself, as well as the people in your life.
Yeah, and I'm a huge, 12-step fan, but I was thinking, you're exactly right. Is like but I'm able to forgive myself, and be gracious. Like, just go, like, I didn't plan on any of this stuff happening. It has happened. I can't make it unhappen. In the 12 steps, we talk about acceptance is the answer to all my problems. I don't always love that, but at some point I can't, it's like, this is I can't make that unhappen. This is where I am right now. And how can I choose to move forward on a different path that isn't hurtful to myself, that isn't causing me, like in the last question, to be a screaming maniac, but is also, I'm kind to myself. I'm doing things that are in line with my values. I'm not, name calling and being angry, and just, out of control. Because you know what? That's the dysregulation we talk about so often. If I'm dysregulated, if I'm able to bring it back in and become regulated, then I can focus on, what do I need to do? And I can let go of, some of the resentment, including towards myself. There's a continuation of this one, Angela, with a similar question, but from the betrayer. I have resentments in my relationship that predate and or are unrelated to my acting out. How on earth can I air these grievances when I have hurt my spouse so grievously?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you air your grievances first with your sponsor, right? You air your grievances first with your 12-step fellows. You don't do the 12 steps by yourself. That's kind of perpetuating a lot of the shame, which harbors resentments instead of helping you let go of them. And so, yeah, when you've hurt your spouse or your partner, which, by the way, kudos for being here and posting this question. I really appreciate that you're even willing to ask a question like this. I think that that's a really big deal. There's a lot of people who are just too scared to even try any of this work. I think a lot of people are afraid, I'm never going to be able to let go of my resentments. I'm never going to be able to be happy or get over whatever happened in the past. My partner will never be able to get over it. So what's the point in doing the work? So hearing you come in here and ask this question, first of all, I thank you. I'm Fantastic. Good work. This is an excellent starting place. But as far as being able to air your grievances, start with your sponsor, start with your 12-step fellows. If you've got a CSAT or a trauma therapist, do that, because whenever you are ready to go to your partner, it might be 10 years from now, right? You don't attempt to make amends or make a request for amends if it's going to be harmful to the other person, right? So the timing has a lot to do with this, how you go about doing it, which grievances you air out. It's very likely that some of the grievances that you're holding, to be honest, are probably things that you still have some denial around, right? Maybe you had some unrealistic expectations in the first place, and it had nothing to do with what your partner did. You were just disappointed in how reality went, you know? And so it's to bring a grievance to your partner before first trying to do that with the sponsor, the 12 steps, and a therapist who can be able to say, hey, listen, that doesn't sound like a grievance that your partner would be able to do anything about if you bring it up to your partner. It sounds like this is just your own resentment and your own disappointment in how things went, right? And so being able to have people who can really be honest with you, right? In a loving and compassionate way, supportive way. Sometimes you need a good kick in the rear end for it to really sink in, but that can be loving too, right? That's my thoughts on that. What do you think, Tammy?
Well, I was thinking the same thing, because the fourth step is we write down all our resentments, and what I wondered about with this is, was that, like, you may have some insights that perhaps you were using those resentments as justification for the acting out. That happens pretty often. So I'm not saying that that's the case, but it could be. And I think really exploring that. So if you haven't already done your fourth and fifth step, please, work with your sponsor, get those, done. And you will find, like, I bet some of the, like, whys are interesting, but not but like, if you go, oh, there's, like, I had that resentment, and that I gave myself permission to act out because I was disappointed, like Angela was saying, I'm disappointed that this didn't happen, or whatever, and I took it as a slight or whatever. And so you may have some insights about those aspects. And I do think resentments are, I said it last week, are the number one offender for relapse. So you addressing those precursor ones and figuring out what was going on with that, that, I mean, it could tie back to your childhood, who knows, because somebody might have rejected you at some point along the way, and then you're feeling like your partner is, who knows, interesting. And an opportunity. I really think the more that we do this, and I have the Life Anonymous book right here in my cupboard, I agree, but for those of us in 12 step, working the 12 step, the fourth and fifth steps that are in alignment with the program you're doing, great. But Life Anonymous would also be a great option. So, but I think you'll have some interesting insights, if you dig into that particular layer.
Yeah.
Does
And
a betray? Go ahead,
could I
please.
was one more thought that came up, because what if there was a wound to the relationship, right? Let's give the benefit of the doubt that there was a wound, and that's what this person is hoping to, they're using the words air out my grievances, which to me tells me that you're still not quite able to say, hey, there's a wound and I'd like for us to heal that wound. Or if you decide that moving forward in your relationship, you would like some of these things to be different. It could be really important when you have that conversation, maybe to do it with a very well-trained betrayal trauma specialist who can guide you into having that conversation with your partner, where you have that together, where you're able to say, listen, there were these things that happened way before there was any kind of a betrayal. And I'm not using any of that as an excuse. My choices were wrong, and I absolutely wounded you, and I never should have done what I did. And as we are healing, as we're rebuilding marriage 2.0 or relationship 2.0, here are some things I'd really like to have on our radar moving forward, right? Where you can take full responsibility for your choices. There's not even a hint that anything that you did is a result of those earlier experiences. That would be the main thing that I just wanted to make sure I had the chance to say.
That was very important. I'm glad you chimed in. Okay, so does a betrayed partner who has PTSD due to insidious behavior of her husband really have to own any behavior, even screaming or raging? I don't think it is fair, and it feels like blame shifting to me.
Okay, well, I hear the pain in that.
Mhm.
And PTSD is a very real experience. It is a very real impact on the nervous system. Do you have to? Nobody ever has to anything, right? So if you don't, then you don't, and there will be the implications of that, right? But if you feel like, listen, screaming and raging doesn't fit with my values, and I wish that my pain hadn't overwhelmed my nervous system to such a point that I handled it that way, right? Then you can still acknowledge to yourself, you know what? If this situation wasn't so painful and hadn't overwhelmed my nervous system, I probably wouldn't have handled it that way, right? That is a way where you can say, listen, I think that there are ways that I can handle it differently that maybe would have been more effective. Maybe not, who knows, right? But all we can do is look at what are the things that are in alignment with my values? What is integrity for me? And then follow that, right? So do you want to, let's see, the question was, um, do I have to own my screaming or raging as a problem, right? So no, you don't have to own it. You don't have to own it. But that means that what you're doing is saying, listen, I have no control, and everything that my partner has done was done to me. It has nothing to do with the fact that my partner may have been going through who knows what. It's it's like asking the partner who cheated, asking them, why do you have ADHD? They're not going to have a good answer for you, but they're going through something that led them to make these choices and these decisions. So if you don't want to own what you were going through, your PTSD, then don't. That's entirely up to you. But if you are looking for ways to heal the wound, the attachment wound, then that's what it will take, right? Is saying, my nervous system was pushed way beyond any normal functioning. And as a result, I handled things in a way that I would have loved to have handled it differently, right? You can own that, and that's not blame shifting. That's not saying, oh, because I raged, my partner did what they did. You're not taking any blame. You're just owning, hey, I handled it in a way that maybe wasn't as effective. And had my nervous system not been completely overwhelmed, I probably wouldn't have handled it that way, right? I don't see the blame there in doing that.
And I don't either. I mean, I am responsible for my actions and my reactions, and even if I'm hurt, like I ultimately am responsible. So for me, I must take responsibility, and I want to, because that is empowering. Because then I can shift things and move things forward. I think it's absolutely, what is your goal?
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody wants to be a screaming, raging maniac like that other person was talking about, you can.
Yeah.
Now that usually is pushes people away. There will be lots of people who set their boundaries of like, that is not safe for me to be around, and it can be very isolating. So that continuing that path is absolutely a choice, but it could have a really negative effect on you. And ultimately, I would hope that your goal would be to heal the big, massive wound that has been created by your partner's behaviors. Yeah, never okay. Like we were just talking about on the last one, it isn't giving permission to someone to act out. It happened, and there's lots of underlying issues and whatever. They chose poorly, they didn't have better tools, but now if they have a recovery plan, there's a different way to do things, and hopefully they're showing you with their actions that they're changing. And that gives you an opportunity to look at this and go, is this a little safer for me to show up differently, in this? But, like everybody chooses their path,
Yeah.
So yeah, we're seeking integrity. Like I work really hard at having integrity with my actions and my words and things like that. And if I don't, I'm quick to make an amends because I don't like how it feels if I hang on to that. So I've learned that wasn't me early in recovery, but I've learned, and so that's where I am now. But yeah, it's your journey, so you get to pick.
Yeah.
I am an alcoholic, 10 months sober. Yay. And in 12 step, I know I can't live in resentments. Yes. As that is the number one cause of relapse. Yes. For you and everyone else. My betraying partner gaslit me for years and just 5 months ago started in sex addiction therapy. He still trickle trues and gaslights at times, even after full disclosure with his therapist present. If I bring up inconsistent answers from him, he gets he gets overwhelmed in shame and then either withdraws or gets defensive or trickle trues more.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I mean, what I'm hearing here is just 5 months ago, you guys started in sex addiction therapy, you and your partner. Um, that's still pretty early. So the fact that when you can bring up inconsistent answers, if he gets overwhelmed in shame and withdraws, that's an indicator to you, okay, he's getting overwhelmed or he's shame spiraling. And at a time when he's not shame spiraling and he's not overwhelmed, be able to bring up, hey, listen, I'm worried that you're still struggling with that defensive. I'm worried about the shame and how that's impacting you. Is that still something that you're working on with your therapist? Right? Where you can show compassion when they respond that way. You don't have to take it personally. It's very likely that they're struggling with their own stuff, man. And honestly, many of these people who start in sex addiction therapy, in some ways, it gets a little worse before it gets better because they've got this predicament where in their mind, in their heart even, they're going, is it even possible for me to change? And so they're constantly battling inside of their head. Should I even keep down this path? Is it even worth it? Will I ever even be able to change? Even if I do change, will my partner ever be able to trust me again? I mean, they've got so much that is bombarding them, and that's going to wear anybody out. And so they're already fighting with themselves. And then when you bring up something that's inconsistent, which is appropriate, right? If they say something that's false, it needs to be brought up, right? You don't just ignore it. But when they respond that way, it's okay to have compassion and say, you know what? Let's pause on this. We'll talk about it later. And, be sure to talk to your sponsor about it. Maybe at our next check-in, you can let me know what your sponsor has to say about this. Yeah, what do you think, Tammy?
But I'm going to add to, it's not just sex addicts. This is universally true for all addicts. So you are a person in recovery. I can imagine, like, well, I remember the very early recovery of like, okay, I'm really committed to not doing this, but it's been your maladaptive coping mechanism for however long. This is where we normally go to, and I'm trying really hard to not do that. And like I'm not sure, and leaning into the lifelines. But you guys are both in early recovery on this, and then there's the interaction for the two of you. So it's a journey, and it's going to take more time. Lean into the support you have in your recovery program and betrayed partner support as well. But like nothing good will happen if you lose your recovery. So the more work you do in your program, the more support you'll have to be able to go, yeah, this isn't me, or this is, there may be, like I said, I have to make amends when I need to. So you being able to identify, what's happening with you, talking to your sponsor, talking to your therapist, you guys can have a really good future, because you are both on a recovery path. And it isn't side by side and we're all doing all the, and we're both getting better at the exact thing. No, it's going to take different times, and there'll be a little growth spurt and then there'll be a little stall, so this is a lifetime journey for both of you if you choose it. So,
Well said, Tammy. Well said.
okay, I have a question about preventing resentment in recovery. Some of my husband's SA acting out behavior occurred around a hobby that had been very meaningful for him from most of his life. Since DEA 5 months ago, he has stopped all activity related to this hobby. Is it possible to separate his hobby from the acting out and addictive cycles it enabled? His hobby is now very triggering to me as the betrayed, but I worry that he will not have meaning and joy in his life and will carry resentment toward me. Are there potentially ways he could engage in his hobby without it activating his addiction cycle again? This is
Mm.
such a great question.
Yes, it is. I love it. This is somebody who said, I want to be um in touch with reality. I want to have realistic expectations. And I really care and understand the value of having something meaningful in our lives. Fantastic question. So I don't know what the hobby is. So it can be a little fuzzy here. I'm going to do my best to answer. Um, One of the best things you can do is get a sponsor involved. If we're talking about a hobby, is it possible that the sponsor can be participating in that hobby as well, right? Who are safe fellows who can also be involved in that hobby so that there is an accountability right then and there while they're doing the hobby? Are there things that they can do to sort of create a game plan? A CSAT would be a wonderful person to create a game plan of how to be able to reintegrate this hobby back into life in a safe way as possible. We just want to reduce risks of future acting out behaviors or future triggers. Um, how well are they going to be able to practice utilizing the tools that they have when a trigger does happen? So there's a lot of ways that I think that it can be possible, but you want to do it very well supported and with a good game plan where you try it out every once in a while, see how it's going, break it down, bookend it, with the sponsor. There's a ton of strategies that can be used. And then the question for the betrayed partner is, what are the strategies that you're going to use to help with your triggers, knowing that your partner is starting to reintegrate these things? Are there any ways that you can participate in this hobby from time to time? Maybe not every time, but are there ways that you can participate here and there or get to watch it? I don't know if it's like RC control art, remote control car
Radio control,
racing or
yeah, yeah,
something, right? Like, is there a way that you
yeah.
can be an observer? Like, I don't know what the hobby is, but I think that there would be a lot of ways that you could do this, but I would just use a lot of caution and have the right strategies and the right support system going into it, and be able to say, hey, can we try it a few times and reassess? And maybe it's a not yet. Maybe it's something that we look forward to being able to reintegrate later, but just not yet, right? And I think that that's wonderful. Reduce that sense of urgency. Give yourself that gift.
Yes, and I think it's a really good conversation. Like to be curious, I'm really curious. How are you feeling about not engaging with that hobby? I understand with my addiction that I lost the opportunity to do certain things that like they just aren't a good life choice for me. And, that doesn't mean everything, but there are certain things that my recovery is way too important. So if there is some version of this that could be safe, that great. And yes, having a plan and not just going like, yeah, I'm going to run off and do the same things I did, before. But what Angela said about you having the safety for you so that you're able to, to take care of you, because it'll be an anxious moment, when this happens, when engaging in the hobby, potentially happens. But I think it's a really good conversation of like, do you miss it? Or for, you may find that he's going like, I miss some aspects of it, but like it's too tied up with my acting out and I've got too much on stake. I'm not going to choose to do that. There's other hobbies. Like honestly, we find lots of other things that we wouldn't have even known we were interested in, when we start, getting our head, up and focused out. So, but what a loving question for you to ask, with vulnerability. So, okay. Betrayer here. I've had resentments for many years about things that my betrayed partner has done. so this is the betrayer saying my betrayed partner has done. However, I told myself and convinced myself of such lies and exaggerations about those events that I've made them into much more than they actually were. I've been acting and resenting her for many years about these now made up and made worse things. I am trying to understand what actual facts were and how to right those wrongs. Is it possible that I will be able to address the actual facts and stop the BS I've been telling myself? I feel so bad for her and know that she is always waiting for the next thing to blow up and find out what I've been telling myself about her. It's a terrible way for her to live. And for you
Oh,
too. You like it has to be
yes.
painful for you too.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing about the past, right? All of our memories are tainted. I mean, they just are. It's very difficult to know what really actually happened, all the details. And so when you have a memory from the past that's resentful, take it to your sponsor instead of to your partner, right? Work it out with your sponsor. There's going to be things that you never have to confront your partner for, even if they did something that was an actual wound, right? You don't always have to work that out with your partner. Now, if your therapist says, hey, listen, this is something that seems to be coming up for you guys in your marriage and your reintegration stuff, then let's work on it, right? But a lot of the things, like you're saying, you're realizing there's so much BS that you've been telling yourself that at some point, anytime you have a thought that comes up, you can say, you know what? I've been telling myself a lot of BS and there's no way for me to know if that thought that's coming up right now is BS or not. Let it go, right? Like it's just a thought. It's just a thing that's coming up for you. That resentment is an emotion and it's pointing back to the fear of, are we going to be able to repair the rupture in our relationship? Can we move forward? And that's often where so many of these resentments are coming from, is that it's a deep-seated fear, a longing, a sadness, a grief, sometimes cynicism, right? This envy that you want something for yourself and you're afraid you're not going to be able to get it. And generally that's a happy, fulfilling relationship, right? With your intimate partner. And so I would say in cases like this, I love that you're able to say, wow, I realize that so much of what I've been thinking is just full blown BS. And maybe you just let it stay that, you know? And then as you move forward, when you have a marital therapist saying, hey, I see that this is coming up for you, it seems to be something that comes up for you a lot, then you know, oh, maybe this is something we can talk about and work through. But you don't have to work through everything, right? Some things are just, it's just water under the bridge. It's just in the past, you know? Oh, what do you think, Tammy?
I don't think you can ever unpack every single thing. And what a, at some point, a lot of time to spend. I wonder if you can create a situation where you can, without, anger or rage, say, the story I'm telling myself, I actually love this one because the story I'm telling myself is blah, 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 blah. Is that true? Like, is that, because then you're inviting a conversation and a fact verification, and your partner can go, well, that part of, yeah, I actually was going off to the grocery store, but no, I wasn't going off to, spend all your money or whatever. I'm making it up, of course. But, so like you can have a conversation. What a different environment for the two of you to have this, the story I'm telling myself, and you're saying it from that way, not accusatory. You're doing, no, the story I'm telling myself, is X, Y, and Z, and can have a discussion about that. And then your partner, if you've created a safe space that she isn't waiting, I'm using she and she, isn't waiting for the other shoe to drop, could go, thank you for asking. And, no, here's what really is happening, or yes, that part was true, whatever. But wow, then you're having a conversation and you're not blowing it up in your head to make it some explosive thing. And your partner's not living in fear of like, oh, now what's he going to make up about whatever it is. So, that would be like a healthy relationship thing to do. And wow, I can only imagine your partner going, this is really different and a good
Yeah.
thing,
Yes. Yeah. And especially when you do, I love this, Tammy. That's exactly what needed to be said. And when you do it, you can also say, when you say, I'm making it up in my head, this, and I want you to know I'm not accusing you of it, I'm coming to you for clarification. Right?
Great. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to, well, you don't have to, but I would invite you to go, I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to say this, from a place of calmness,
Mhm.
and so that you have the opportunity to have a conversation. So there isn't defensiveness by your partner going like, I'm being accused of things again.
Yes. Yes. So well said.
Okay, next question. Can you speak to the neuroscience behind the rewiring of the brain to release resentments? I undertook a practice of 90 and 90 to release resentments as felt this was keeping me protected but stuck. This included a daily resentment meditation and then naming 3 things I could see that I could appreciate about what my partner was doing. The first few weeks, I could feel the pull of my brain to stay resentful, but after about a month, those deep worn paths don't seem to be as dominant and I feel relief. That is excellent. Thanks for sharing that.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and we know what we know about um anger, like very, very strong emotions, they tend to have a deeper impact in our brain, right? These neural pathways that are formed um are formed easier for strong um mm, protective emotions, right? So the fear, the anger, these are there to try to protect us from harm or risk of harm. And so those tend to have a quicker, more solid and longer lasting neuropathway. And so being able to engage in something for 90 days consistently like that is such an excellent practice and can retrain those neural pathways where when the resentment or the anger or whichever the strong emotion is that you're working on, when it comes up, as you respond to it with compassion and gratitude, I like that you said that you found things that you appreciate about what your partner's doing. What that's doing is it's training you when you have that to also do this. So it's like conditioning, right? It's like a classical conditioning. I now associate resentment with enjoying the feeling of appreciation, right? That resentment doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be a threat. It can be something that opens the door to my practice of appreciation. So now they go hand in hand. When you experience one, you automatically associate appreciating along with it. So it's a very powerful approach. And it takes that commitment. It sounds like you have a high level of resilience and determination, and that is going to pay off for you. That is a great strategy.
I was thinking like EMDR, where you replace the thought with some positive thought, and I have found because I have a therapist that did EMDR with me, and there was, and so like if something gets triggered, for me, it was like I found exactly that there was the immediate going to the positive image, the caring image. So I suspect that is very much the same with this is like, you're going, oh, I'm not going to go on that freeway. I'm changing to this route. So yeah,
Yeah.
I love your commitment to that because yeah, I've shared on previous webinars what I learned to do for resentments, and it wasn't 90 days. It could have been 90 days if it depended on the severity of the resentment, and how willing I
Yes.
was to let it go. But yeah, it was like I kept doing that until I didn't feel, that feeling, and it did get replaced. So,
Mhm. Yeah, I love it.
okay, I'm the betrayed partner. I was not naturally physically attracted to my partner prior to discovery. I had to work at it and find other traits about him that I found attractive, like kindness, honesty, loyalty, humor. Fast forward with the discovery of betrayals and infidelity for our whole relationship. I'm resentful that I went out of my way to create attraction for him, and he gave away his sexual energy and attention to other women. Plus, the traits I found so attractive about him aren't true because infidelity is void of being honest, kind, and loyal. Is it possible that I am going to be able to get over this resentment to possibly be able to develop a physical and sexual attraction towards him on the other side of discovery when he is in good recovery and I'm healing. He does not know I feel this way. I went out of my way to make him feel secure and desired in our relationship.
Yeah, wow, that's a tough one. So, yes, anything is possible. And really, this goes back to um, being able to retrain your brain, just like the last question. But I would encourage you to not bypass some very personal work that you can be doing to help you figure out, why is it that I'm wanting to retrain my brain towards an attractiveness towards this person? What are my values? How can I create my own dignity or tap into my own dignity in doing these things? What are the things, the motives driving me for this? Is this still in alignment with what I want for myself? So if the question is just simply, is it possible? Yes, it's possible. But I would encourage that you not rush into it. I would encourage that you take some time to really do some personal exploration and personal healing, so that when you're doing it because you truly want to, right? It's a much more clean commitment to re-fostering that sense of attraction and appreciation, which there are things that your partner can do that would help foster that, right? They need to earn your trust back. And that is something that happens, we say time plus consistency equals trust. And that takes time. And so while they're doing their part to earn your trust back, you can be doing your work of figuring out, what are my values? What would be a clean motive for retraining my brain to have this attraction, this appreciation? Is this safe? Is this the direction I want to go in? All of those things that are really important for you to explore in a safe setting, like in therapy, because you're right, that's not the kind of thing that you would necessarily say to your partner until much later in the relationship, when you guys are working on repairing the wound, the rupture in the relationship.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how soon this is. You
Yeah.
know, this one feels like it's a little newer to the process, but I don't know. But yeah, like everything Angela just said. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a betrayed spouse. The previous question of being a screaming maniac is my story too. The kind of vocabulary that has come out of my mouth, cuss words, so often in the past several years are shocking to me when they hit the air. I can't even believe it was my voice I just heard. My betraying spouse is here with a meeting. This behavior is against my values and my entire life history. Would you please explain the meaning and signs of dysregulation and what is common for the betrayed spouse? I need to understand these changes in myself, my behavior, personality, my declining health just for me. And I want him to understand what I've been going through and not just that I've become a hateful
All the
B
things.
word.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you for asking this. You know, yes,
Mm.
I hear you. And yes, Angela can help. So,
So listen, when you go through an experience where everything you thought to be true has just been revealed to not be true, you don't know what to believe. You don't know what's up from down. You can't figure out what to trust and not trust, even going as far as not knowing which therapist to trust, right? It becomes a globalized mistrust, because if the person who's closest to you, who you have the most intimate relationship with, who you trust the most, is the one who betrays that trust, now all of a sudden, if that person is capable of this, what are all the other people capable of? And what else is my partner capable of if they were capable of this? So now there's no solid ground to stand on. You have no idea what's real and what's not real. And not in a you're irrational way. I mean, you can still be very rational. I think that these very strong emotions points to the fact that you're aware the situation is not what it should be. And I am not okay with that, because I know that this should be better. and you are looking for ways to try to create safety. You're looking for ways to try to establish some sense of an ability to tell what's real and what's not real. And then on top of that, looking at your partner, the person who would generally support you and comfort you when you go through a crisis. And this is the person who feels the most dangerous to you. Not that they've ever, physically hit you, not that they have ever been a danger to you in any other way in the past, but this is dangerous to you. And your nervous system knows this. Your nervous system is saying, hey, we can't be safe when we don't know what's real and what's not real. Because then our choice to make decisions has been removed from us. We aren't making informed decisions for ourselves when we don't have all the information, right? I'm just making decisions based on whatever I can perceive as reality. And when I'm finding out that everything that I've perceived as reality is wrong, then all this time I haven't been making informed decisions for myself. That autonomy was removed from me. And that is a real danger. That is a real risk. And it's not a situation you would keep yourself in willingly, right? And so you are doing everything that you can to affect change, to try to get your partner to understand how damaging these behaviors were, not just to you, but to the relationship as well, and possibly to family, friends, if there's kids involved, right? I mean, like all of a sudden, there is so much betrayal and uncertainty. And where do we go from here? And I can't create safety on my own. My partner is going to have to do their part in order to create safety. And the only way that I can control my own peace is to pull away. And my partner doesn't want me to pull away, and then they're going to get angry at me. So where does that leave me? I mean, this is such a conundrum, such a predicament for betrayed partners, and that will exceed anybody's nervous system. Of course, you're going to be raging. Of course, you're going to be saying words that have not been a part of your vocabulary because you're in a situation that you've never been in before. And this is not a safe situation. It's not okay. And so it all makes sense, right? Your nervous system is overwhelmed and you're just trying to find a way to get safe. And how do you know when you're safe? Because all this time there's been all these lies. And so you're constantly left in hypervigilance mode. And when you're constantly in hypervigilance mode, that wears down your body, it wears down your thoughts. It makes you feel like even when you're with close, safe friends, that you might not even be safe there because you can't tell them what's been going on. So now you don't have that support system. I mean, the impact is just like a tsunami. It goes in every direction and it completely drowns out everything. So it's no wonder. It is absolutely no wonder that you are experiencing that and have been experiencing that. What do you think, Tammy?
I agree. It's no wonder, and unfortunately, it's normal, whatever that is, for trade partners or anybody in high stress, situations to experience this. But, and yes, your addict partner has known all along that they were doing all of these things, and then you have discovery, and it's so painful and disruptive. And you're looking at, was everything a lie? I mean, like it turns everything upside down, and you're not sleeping, you're not eating, you're not taking care of yourself. So yes, your physical body also gets negatively impacted. If you're not sleeping and take care of yourself, you're on, you're beyond your bandwidth. And then, we are just, we're trying our best to do whatever, and we don't do it well, and so self-care to help get regulated, and you won't do it perfectly, and being gracious to yourself. I had a situation recently. I went back to my therapist, who I love, and she said, "Well, of course you're, because I was like, I'm doing all these things to get regulated, And she said, "Well, you're in a storm. You're not going to do it like." And I was like, just her saying that, of like, oh, okay, because I kept thinking, I'm not doing this right. I'm, and I wasn't happy with myself. And she gave me permission to give myself grace to go, you're doing the best you can, and it won't always be like this. And she was
Yes.
right, And so and you move forward. Doing some things like journaling can be helpful. The clinical director of our program, he talks about cold plunging. I don't like being cold, but honest to goodness, if it would make me get regulated in 2 minutes, I'd be willing to, go jump in a cold lake right now, because I don't need it right now, but it's like, what do I need to do in this moment? I do, breathing exercise. I do my meditations. I run. Walking, was the original EMDR, the bilateral. So there's, find a few things that help you at least settle in the moment. But journaling is, like there's proven research about journaling, and just dumping that junk out of your brain, can help, because there it is, and then, some of it you may go through or you may not, but you may go through and go, yeah, that's true. And that's not, uh, but work with a qualified professional. You're not alone. It feels like you're alone in this, and your betraying partner isn't your safe person, so yeah, getting a tribe of other betrayed partners. I mentioned earlier, Angela's going to start the betrayed partner work group again on March 4th. Please, I encourage you to join it. It's low cost, high value, and more specific, like she shared for you, like you can run things by her about your personal situation. Drop in groups. Angela hosts the Sunday night betrayed partner group for 6 years already. And, so, but that's not the only one. There are different options. So, but the thing I'm going to say is be kind to yourself and just go, yeah, this was really awful. And, I'm not going to get stuck here. You're already saying this isn't who I am, and I want to move forward in a different way. So, there's lots of lifelines, and, and you will make progress and find a healing path through this. It doesn't get past, it's through. So,
Through. Exactly.
yeah.
And I would say one really valuable resources for this would be Out of the Doghouse, the book, and then there's the work group too.
Work group. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So if your partner, the one who cheated, is willing to do the work group, that would go so far in helping to understand nobody wants to be angry. Nobody wants to be yelling or saying words that haven't been a part of their vocabulary. They're not, betrayed partners aren't doing this because they like feeling angry. They don't want to be angry. They're doing everything that they can to not be angry and sad and scared. This is the real, very, very real impact of the situation on the betrayed partner's psyche and nervous system. And I think Out of the Doghouse is probably one of the best ways to wrap your mind around that.
So, do you have a few more minutes? We've got 2 more questions. Can we get
Yeah.
through those?
Yeah, let's see
Okay,
if we can do
excellent.
that.
Okay, as a betrayed partner, I have decided to move forward with divorcing my spouse due to lack of recovery. He is now stonewalling me, and my abandonment wound is totally triggered. I want to shake him and say, what do you want from me? You don't want a marriage because you're not doing the work. So let me go without the tantrum. I feel so triggered and powerless. We have small kids, and it's so hard to function with this trigger. Any advice until therapy on Thursday?
Oh, that the abandonment wound is such a deep wound. Being able to recognize that the abandonment wound started even before your partner can go a long way in helping you. It might sound hopeless, but in fact, it's a way for you to go, okay, this abandonment has happened before, and I have wonderful children who I have safe, loving relationships with these children, and we can cuddle up with each other, and there's no relational rupture between us, and we can enjoy each other's presence. And that goes a long way in helping give kind of what we call those emotionally corrective experiences, right? So finding people, a friend, maybe somebody who is a mentor to you earlier in life, and just writing them a letter, even if you never send it, right? Something that gives you the opportunity to experience not being abandoned, or showing your children that you are not abandoning them. I mean, so many parents who are going through this situation, whether you are a mom or a dad, if you are a parent and you've got small children in the home and you are the betrayed partner, one of the big questions is, how do I keep this from impacting my kids? And the best thing that you can do for that is to just be present with them, right? Yes, you're going to be in pain. Yes, there's going to be tears, But for you to recognize that you are not abandoning your kids and celebrate that about yourself can give so much strength to be able to go, wow, I can sit down and read a book to my kids, find a book to read, something that's kind of structured, but not too structured, where you're just present with them for a little bit, maybe not for long stretches of time, because that can be really hard and you just need to step to the room, another room, and get some crying out and then get back to it, right? Pace yourself, reduce that sense of urgency. This is a wound and wounds heal, right? Anytime our body gets a wound, our body knows what to do to heal. So for you to be able to say, I have a wound, it's an abandonment wound, and I recognize that it's going to heal, right? It doesn't make the abandonment in the past go away, but the impact on your body and your nervous system, that can heal. And that's a very real work that we do in trauma therapy. You've got your appointment on Thursday. Just remembering that there is hope and people heal from abandonment wounds all the time. Yeah.
So Troy Love's work is all about this. And I bet it isn't just your abandonment wound. I bet your betrayal wound. I bet your rejection wound. I bet all of them are getting stirred up. And I hear you wanting to engage him, and you already know where that's going to go. Like he can't show up for himself. He can't show up for you. And I wonder about if you just go, yeah, I'm not going to betray myself. I'm going to hold my internal boundary, and I'm not going to play that game, because as long as your negative attention is still attention, that saying, and as long as he can get you riled up, and like it's not about winning or losing, but he kind of wins, and so what would it look like for you to just go, not playing that game? I know he wants me to be involved, but like Angela said, I'm gonna go spend time with my kids. I'm gonna go snuggle with them. I'm gonna journal. I've mentioned it earlier, journaling, and just go, yeah, it's so sad. I'm so sad that he can't show up for himself and for our children and for me. And absolutely, and that's his brokenness, and it's very sad. I always feel bad for the betrayed partners, but I feel really horrible for the addicts too, because they're missing out. They're missing out on you. They're missing out on the kids. They're missing out on all the good things in life to hang on to something that is so worthless, in the broad scheme of things. So you will get through this. Troy Love, on our website, we've got previously recorded webinars. This one will be posted tomorrow. But check out, because he talks a lot about the different wounds, and he affirms, yes, and those voices of shame and all of those things. I should have been a different wife or whatever. No, you have worth, and you are deserve of love, and all this. And it's really sad that your addict partner is unable to show up in any kind of real and meaningful way and be an adult about any of this. So, but you and your children are going to not just survive, you're going to thrive, but you're in a really not fun part of it right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Betrayed here, my partner does resent writing so that he can process them on paper. Oh, does his resentment on, okay, I gotcha. So he writes out his resentments, and then he can process them on paper with himself, as opposed to me talking them out on me. As the betrayed, should I be keeping my resentments to myself like he does, or should I bring them up to process them out loud with him? That's a great question too.
Yeah, that's a good question. And again, I think that this could depend on what stage of recovery your partner is in, whether or not they can accept and receive your bringing your resentments to them. But it goes back to that approach that we talked about earlier of, hey, I'm making it up in my head that this has happened. Can you clarify for me? I'm not accusing. Can you clarify for me? And if they say, yeah, that's real, then you could say, wow, that's really leaving me with a lot of sadness and regret for trusting too soon. And, like all of the things, whatever it is that's bringing that up for you, and not expecting them to fix it in that moment. And that's the thing. When we share our resentments, when we do any type of check-in, it is not for the purpose of your partner to fix it in that moment. It's just to let them know, hey, here's something that I'm working on within myself. This is something that has my attention. It's on my radar. And I'm doing my work around it. And then they get to decide how they're going to respond to that. Some of their or some of our resentments, they can't, there's nothing that they could do that would stop the resentments, right? Because it was a past behavior, it's something that happened in the past, maybe. They can't undo that, right? So there isn't a way to fix it. And so when you're bringing your resentment to them, when you do talk about it, being able to recognize, having the right expectations that they can't actually fix it, but maybe they can be aware and have strategies. You could talk through and collaborate on how to keep something like that from happening again in the future. They might apologize, they might not, and it can feel incredibly painful when they choose not to apologize, but maybe they're not ready to apologize now, but a few months from now, maybe they do, right? And so just having very realistic expectations. This kind of stuff is slow moving. It takes a long time to rebuild trust. It takes a long time to bring our defenses down and just sit in a sense of humility and being able to receive what our partners bring to us. And when we do feel shame, or we do feel resentment, or we do feel defensiveness, to go to somebody and express that that's what we're experiencing and see if they can help us work through that. What is that telling me about myself? What are the values that I have that either got trampled on or that I didn't have the opportunity to express, and that I would like to be able to start, I don't know, navigating from those values instead. So there's a lot of ways to process it, and a lot of it has to do with how receptive your partner is to hearing these things, and how well you can really tend to yourself and help soothe yourself and be compassionate towards yourself when you have those, and when you bring it to them, because your partner may or may not respond in the way that you need them to. And are you still willing to bring that up anyways? And how can you get your needs met when your partner can't meet those needs, right? Which happens from time to time, even in healthy relationships, right?
Yeah, and I was thinking, usually with a resentment, and I was trying to think if it's 100% for me, but there's some wound that's happening. So I wonder if, rather than going, I have a resentment about, if like, I still love the story I'm telling myself. I use that one, see how fast it comes off my lips, but I wonder if you could go like, well, really what it's about is, here's one. I have a resentment that you're going to 12-step meetings. It feels like you're gone all the time, well, or you can say, I'm lonely. I've noticed that, you're going to 12-step meeting and they seem really important and I'm here home. Can we talk about this, or can we come up with a plan that, we're more connected? Same kind of message, very different approach to it. So for me, if I figure out what's really going on with the resentment, and if I'm willing to approach in a vulnerable way, this is what's really going on for me. And are you open to hearing this? Can we problem solve around this? Then there's an opportunity there too. If I come, I'm really good at coming. I don't do it anymore, but if I came at somebody and said, I have a resentment about, guess what? They're going to retreat to their turtle shell, because they should, because like that's big and scary and all that, versus like, hey, I'm being vulnerable and going like, I have a need that is not feeling met and I'm hurt about it. It could go to resentment, but I'd rather approach it from can we talk about this and work on, the actual need, that shifts the whole conversation. So
Completely.
they may say no,
Yeah.
no. And that's, that was what it is. Okay. So I know somebody threw another question in and we're going to pass on that because I said two more. So we're going to hold that boundary, and it's almost 10 after. So Angela, thank you so much. Join Angela on the drop-in groups. If you're a betrayed partner, join her on Sunday nights. It's a mixed gender group on for that. And then the work group, as I mentioned, starts March 4th. You'll see her. So, check out the resources on our website. And you can always email me, Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com, if I can point you towards resources as well. So great job. Such an amazing job you've done with both the presentation last week and answering questions this week. So grateful.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.